In the heart of Oregon City lies a relic from a bygone era, the Oregon City Municipal Elevator, a soaring structure that transcends mere functionality. Rising 130 feet, this architectural gem stands as a testament to ingenuity. In fact, some claim it's not just an elevator, but a piece of heritage. So what's the story behind this bizarre structure? Join me to find out, as today we discover the history of the Oregon City Municipal Elevator. I'm your host, Ryan Sokash, and you're watching It's History. Let's start with the basics. Oregon City is the oldest city in the state and was originally made up of fur traders and missionaries along the Willamette. But as the city welcomed fishermen, millers, provision suppliers, and transporters, it grew and expanded up to the steep hills nearby. People traveling up and down the hills only had two options, and they were going nowhere fast. They could walk down a steep wagon road or winding trails that were originally used by the Native Americans to trade or fish by the river. Hence, in 1867, steps were built up the bluff to supplement the Native American trails. But even so, it was still an arduous climb of 722 steps. With that in mind, it was widely recognized that something needed to be done to make travel easier up the slopes of the city. So on May the 10th, 1912, the City Commission put it up to a vote whether or not they should fund a project that would solve this problem. Surprisingly, the public at first voted against it on July the 8th, 1912, but it was reconsidered and passed on December the 2nd of that same year. And so the city was authorized to issue $12,000 in bonds to build and operate a public elevator at the bluff. But it wasn't all smooth sailing from there. Once funding was secure, the city appointed a committee of city commissioners to investigate the elevator proposition, but not everyone was thrilled. Nearly the entire town was in support, except for the wealthy landlords who didn't want the elevator to be built near their property. By March of 1913, negotiations were taking place to gain access between 6th and 7th Street for the top end of the elevator. The city was gaining ground. However, a landlord named Sarah Chase objected to locating the elevator right in front of her property and refused to sell access to the city. The matter was taken up to the state Supreme Court, which ruled in the city's favor. With the building area secured, the city surveyed and drew up plans for the vertical street. They entered into a contract with the Oregon Bridge and Construction Company, which would do the building, primarily using steel and wood. During construction, the city had a choice to use electric or water power. Electricity was more efficient but more expensive, so the city moved to connect the elevator to the city's water system. However, the city's water board objected for fear that diverting water to the elevator would result in a severe loss of water pressure. The city answered their concerns by removing them and appointing a new water board made of city commissioners. As you might imagine, this issue also went to court, and the elevator committee was instructed to obtain water from the previous board. After much trouble and turmoil, the elevator was finally put into service on November the 27th, 1915, using water from nearby Singer Creek. On opening day, almost the entire city population rode the elevator. The town's wealthy residents were the only ones who didn't ride the elevator on its first day, and Sarah Chase would never end up riding the elevator. Inside, passengers were treated to a 5 to 3 minute ride of 89 feet up, followed by a 35-foot-long catwalk bridging the gap between the two sides of the city. However, the elevator was plagued by problems, suffered from instability, and was largely unreliable. Just as the water board warned, whenever the elevator was activated, the water pressure in nearby homes would drop, only for the elevator to stop working mid-ride. Passengers trapped inside would have to climb out of a trapdoor on top of the compartment and climb down a narrow ladder to the bottom. By 1924, water power was abandoned for electricity, shortening the ride to 30 seconds. Its new dependability made it a preferred method of travel for pedestrians, offering an easy way home for workers up the steep hill. But this would not last forever. By the 1950s, breakdowns were so common that it was determined they needed a new elevator. The City Commission approved a study investigating the feasibility and cost of a new elevator, with a total of $7,000 spent on just the planning. Then, in May of 1952, a special election was held which authorized $175,000 worth of bonds for funding the project. In November of 1953, bids were received with plans for new elevators, but all the low bids were $200,000 or over. All the bids were rejected, and the chance of a new elevator seemed to be lost forever. That is, until Stephen and Thompson firm proposed a new design in January of 1954. Designed by architect George J. Mann and engineer Bert L. Wilder, this new elevator would only cost the city $116,000. The contract was awarded to James & York Incorporated, and after hauling 751 tons of concrete and steel, the 130-foot structure was officially rebuilt on July the 13th, 1955. At the time, 2,000 elevator passes were printed, even though the ride has always been free, and hence the passes were issued as a keepsake and the continuation of a city tradition. The newly built elevator had a futuristic style which was popular during the space race. The top level was now enclosed with a flying saucer-like observation deck, but maintained that original wooden interior. The speed of the trip changed dramatically, however, as now you could reach the top in just 15 seconds. The large windows offered a panoramic view of the city, featuring downtown's picturesque Victorian buildings and Willamette River, reaching as far as Mount St. Helens in Washington. You could also get a close-up view of the Willamette Falls, the second largest waterfall by volume in the United States. Today, the elevator is known as Elevator Street by locals, since it's essentially a continuation of 7th Street. It's now listed on the National Register of Historic Places, with the observation deck adorned in pictures and murals of the city's history. Some of the photos are 3D, shifting from the city's past to present as you walk by. It's also host to a spectrum of exhibits and interactive displays, while being in close proximity to other historical buildings, namely the Historic District and the Museum of the Oregon Territory. The elevator is open every day of the week, and its 120,000 yearly passengers now walk through a tunnel beneath the tracks rather than over the old catwalk. At the end of the day, the Oregon City Municipal Elevator is more than just a means of transportation. It's a source of city pride. It's a monument to the city's heritage and natural beauty, showcasing museums, artifacts, exhibits, and interactive displays. Its unusual nature makes it a hard-to-miss tourist magnet, ensuring every visitor sees what Oregon City has to offer. In fact, steps are still being taken to improve this elevator for years to come. And we'll leave it there for today, but thank you all for watching, and until next time, I'm Ryan Sokash, signing off.